Hello, and thank you so much for joining us for the very first episode of Extraordinary People, the Pride of Britain. A brand new podcast brought to you from all of us on the Pride of Britain team and our friends at TSB. Now, as you probably know, the Pride of Britain Awards are all about properly celebrating good people who do amazing things. In this new podcast, I'm going to delve a lot deeper to find out more about what makes our winners tick, where they find that strength, and what gets them through their tragedy, heartbreak, and sometimes challenging times. We've got a lot of laughs along the way too, and a few celebs telling us their thoughts about courage and our awards. Now, we started the Pride of Britain Awards back in 1999, and since then a huge family has grown. A family of our winners, of all of us on the team through the years, and also everyone who watches and admires the extraordinary things our winners have achieved. And you are part of that family too, so welcome to the gang. Now, our first guest is a bit of a legend. She's someone we've come to know well. After suffering a horrendous acid attack as a young woman, she has gone on to become a campaigner, a TV presenter, and a Pride of Britain winner in 2012. She's even been a Pride of Britain judge. She is, of course, the one and only Katie Piper OBE. Now then, Mrs., I saw you, first of all, 2 weeks ago or something on Loose Women, flashing your abs and wearing all your gear from the 90s. Why was this?
Well, they were feeling nostalgic. They were talking about, they'd done a poll about what were the best decades of people's lives, and the 90s topped the poll. And I was the only one on the panel that day that was a teenager in the 90s. So I started secondary school in 96.
Wow.
So yeah, best time of my life, worst time of my mum's life, probably.
Very impressive, I have to say, in the low-rise jeans. I hated those years, not being a teenager during the 90s. Being in my 40s, I think I was then. It wasn't so good for me. I wanted to take you back to the 90s and about growing up and the young Katie, if that's okay, because your mum, Diane, was a primary school teacher, I believe.
That's
and
right.
Your dad was a barber and you're growing up with your siblings. And life was kind of normal, if you like. Describe Katie as she was in the late 90s and going into the 2000s. What kind of girl was she?
Well, the first sort of year of secondary school in 96, I was quite studious, really engaged with academia because having a school teacher as a mum, my mum was very devoted to our education and, felt that it was really, really important. Then I think by year 9, I was smoking. I was rolling my skirt. Yeah, rolling my skirt up. Yeah. Graffitiing on my tie. And sort of had discovered socializing and all those kind of things. I mean, it's always stayed with me that I was quite a creative person. I loved reading, writing. I loved art. I loved sport. Anything that I could sort of use my imagination with and create stories and scenarios. I really loved, and things like maths and science were terrible for me. So I'm the opposite to you, Carol, basically. Maths and science are hell for me. But yeah, it was great. I lived in a very small village in Hampshire. So, it wasn't sort of like my life in London as an adult. And we had lots of friends where everyone knew everyone and you would play out in the fields, in the woods. I mean, really the kind of childhood that sadly children don't really have now, perhaps with all the technology and the dangers that we're more aware of. It was a lot more like an Enid Blyton book back then.
So it was a lovely time. And then when you left school and could leave maths and science behind with a big smile on your face, then you started eventually to get into television, doing DIY shows or something.
Yeah, I mean, television in very loose terms. It was probably more aspirational than successful. So originally I went to a tech college and I studied an MVQ in hair and beauty therapy, and then I worked in a spa and a salon for a while. I'll tell you who one of my clients was, who I used to massage,
Who?
Dr. Hilary Jones.
No way.
That's an exclusive for you. I used to do his full body massage. I don't know if he'll remember me, but he was one of my regulars every Saturday, actually.
Have you
So,
never told him?
No, but I should do, shouldn't I?
You should tell him. Yeah, you should do that on Would I Lie to You? That would be a good one. That would be a
He was
cracker,
a
that
nice
one.
guy, though, nice client.
Oh, he is. He's lovely, Hilary.
So yeah, it was a health club. He was
Very
a
funny.
member of the health club, and then I did that for a bit, and it was a like interesting job in terms of you got to meet lots of people and hear different walks of life, different stories, but it was sort of limited in how far you could go with it. So then I went to night school and studied to teach the theory side of beauty therapy. So it's the kind of sort of anatomy and physiology side. And then I went for job interviews, and I was sort of 2021, and I wasn't successful in the job interviews to be a teacher at Tech College because I was still kind of younger than a lot of the students.
21 is young to teach.
Yeah, particularly mature students as well. So I think I didn't have enough experience. And at the time, I had friends that were studying who were from London, and they were going to move back to London. So I decided to go on an adventure. And, for me to go from a village and move to the capital of England was quite exciting. And they were all sort of aspiring models, actresses, dancers, singers. And we rented a house where we all rented a bedroom, and we were going to different auditions. And yeah, I worked on the DIY channel selling solar panels, which was very forward thinking in those days.
That was.
Yeah.
That was.
Yeah. The roulette channel. I worked on the jewelry channel selling gemstones. We even got to go to Thailand where all the gemstones were from and film out there. So yeah, I don't think Holly Willoughby was feeling threatened by my career at that point. But I was young, and I suppose for me it felt like I was on my way to fulfilling ambitions and goals, and I was making enough money to pay the rent on a bedroom. So it was exciting, I suppose.
And everything's exciting when it's the first time too, isn't it?
Yeah.
I appreciate that very much, and because you kind of have nothing to lose really, because all you're doing is renting a room, isn't it? It's not like you have a big mortgage or it's just fun.
Yeah, no kids, no response. And I've always enjoyed working really hard. I've always been freelance and self-employed, even as a beautician. And I set up my own business evenings and weekends. I had a Ford Fiesta. I had a wax pot and a fold-up massage couch. And I would go around doing people in the cul-de-sac. And
please don't tell me that you used to wax Dr. Hilary Jones as well.
That would be too far. That's a new book.
I really couldn't cope. No, we'll go with a full body massage. We'll leave it there. And then, obviously, you're having this fantastic time and just enjoying yourself and in the bright lights of London and working hard and doing your best. And then something terrible happened, which many of us know about. But if it's okay with you, if you can describe how, the events that came up to your acid attack.
Yeah, I mean, it's very well documented now. It was over 15 years ago, and I think it's really what brought me to the attention of the public, because it was a news story, and it was a shocking news story in its time, and I suppose it still is now. But sadly, I think following what happened to me, we do read about acid attacks more often now, which is terrible. But the way that it happened to me was that I was dating somebody and I rejected them. And it was a short period, a matter of weeks. It wasn't like,
you met him online, is that right, Katie? But you had a lot of mutual friends.
Yeah. And then when I rejected him, I was beaten up and raped. And then a few days later, a stranger hired by him then threw acid in my face. And that was in 2008. And then, that's sort of been the story around me that people took a lot of interest in, and then the consequence recovery, which really has gone on forever. I mean, I've had surgery this year. It's sort of never really stopped. It's just, I think anyone who's got a burn injury or any sort of life-changing injury, I think what happens with the recovery is, rather than you learning to live with it, a turning point comes where the injury has to learn to live with you, and you get back out there and it doesn't get in your way. But I think the first few years you have to sort of surrender to the injury and let that lead for a bit.
So going back to just after the attack, because this is the important things I know, and we're going to come on to the foundation. and all the work you do to help people who have either burns or other disfiguring injuries. Young Katie, still young, and this shock that happened. How on earth did you cope at that time? And there was a lot of publicity. I can remember it now. I mean, it was terrible to read. And as you'd rightly say, it was something that, we hadn't really heard about before.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of that age-old debate of what makes somebody strong or resilient. Is it nature? Is it nurture? And I think I'm in a very privileged position where I'm from a really stable family. My parents sort of dedicated their lives. There's three of us. I'm the middle child. They sort of dedicated their lives to raising us. And we, up until what happened to me, I'd never really experienced any real pain or trauma. So when it did happen, they were there straight away, and then they literally physically never left my side. And I think that support network you can't underestimate. And I think when your world's turned upside down, it's stability and consistency that will help you rebuild it. So it's definitely credit to my family. I think also a massive credit to the general public, because I think, like you said, it was reported a lot, but people really got behind me, and people really championed me and supported me. You guys at the Mirror were very sensitive in your reporting and in the paper. Pride of Britain got behind me. And especially when it's something visual, like a facial disfigurement, going out in public is really hard. So once it was a public story, there were some really lovely ways people reacted. It was that knowing nod of the head, like small smile, glance, giving you space. Some people coming up and actually speaking to you as well. But that feeling that something terrible happened, but it's really isolated and people aren't terrible as a whole. And as a whole, we're actually pretty decent people is really reassuring. And that helps your mental recovery as well as the physical, I think.
I was, like you say, and we're going to come on to it. Obviously, in 2012, you received your Pride of Britain award. But I was quite amazed, as somebody who's a lot older than you, at this young girl, this very young woman, having the resilience, really, to then go on and not just recover herself, but also to set up this foundation. And this is something that we find with all of our Pride of Britain winners. It's not just about them, it's about using that. What gave you the strength, and where did that idea come from? I know on the night when you received your Pride of Britain award, you did thank your surgeon who'd encouraged you. So who were the key people, really, Katie?
Well, in the beginning, I think when it happened to me, some of the paperwork you see makes it feel quite definite. So I'd lost my eyesight and I had, full thickness burns. I'd lost parts of my esophagus, so quite a lot of internal damage. And when you see the words written on the paper that you're disabled, you must apply for disability benefit, you can't do this, you must ring the DVLA, and that feels quite final. And when you're in your early 20s, disease, disability, sickness, or even death is not something you think will ever happen to you in this sort of decade and even beyond. You sort of think it's the stuff you see on the news or in films. And then I think, I was really affected by all of those things in about 30 seconds. It was so sudden. So you kind of have to go on a spiritual journey where when you look at what disability is in society, that 15 years ago, it's placing very limited expectations on people and saying they can only be one thing. And particularly as a young woman, they don't say that disabled people are attractive or sexy or even have a sex life or are desirable. They don't say that they're CEOs. They don't say that they're trailblazers. They don't encourage them to have a career or be ambitious. And I thought, well, yeah, the outside has absolutely changed of me and the inside is feeling quite battered and challenged, but I am still me. And, man as in mankind, you can touch somebody all over, but you can never truly own another. You'll always have your human spirit and your soul intact. I mean, it might feel slightly fragile at times. And I've really started to work on that belief of being resilient, and that resilience is something we all have. Like that pedestal of being inspirational is a bit of a facade, because we've all got that in our core, but we just usually don't tap into it until it's the only choice we have left. So I tried to do it alone, a lot of self-development, self-help, working on myself. I had a great team in the NHS, my surgeon, but the whole team, when you have any kind of big operations, there's physios, there's OTs, there's registrars,
Yeah.
and they were brilliant. But I do think that sometimes in life, we're taught in like this culture that everything's external and everything we can buy will make us feel better. But I do think sometimes in life, the only answer is within you. And you really have to sit with that sometimes. And you can't wait for other people to make your life better or come into it to enrich it. The only person that can make your life really bloody brilliant is yourself.
That's such a powerful message, and it isn't one that necessarily gets out there often enough. And for you to
Mm.
be saying it, I know we know does make such a difference to particularly young people nowadays. You set up the foundation the year after. Now, just even putting aside the fact that you've been through this horrendous attack, how does somebody in their early 20s even think about setting up a foundation and a charity and the admin and the appalling red tape that you have to go through?
Yeah, I mean, it was quite hard because I didn't have a corporate background, and I only had
Yeah.
GCSEs and then this MVQ in massaging Dr. Hilary Jones. So that wasn't very good experience.
That would
Um,
go top of my CV, I have to say.
But yeah, but I knew I wanted to do it. And also, like, mum and dad had always taught me that you can have anything you want in life if you go out there and work hard for it and make it happen. So I was on disability benefit. My eyesight was very bad in the beginning. No eyesight in my left eye. I've got 75% in my right, but the right was more damaged in the beginning. So I couldn't see to do beauty treatments, and all my hands were burnt and they had skin grafts and they weren't as flexible and they had bandages and stuff. So I thought, I can't go to a salon for a job interview. And I wore a plastic face mask, so I didn't even
Yeah.
have facial expression. So I thought, I'm going to have to do something else. And, not necessarily to earn money, but for purpose. And, when you're depressed, you end up in this cycle of not waking up on time, not showering. And I thought, I need
Yeah.
something to take a bit of pride and dignity in myself. And at the same time, separately, I was traveling abroad through specialist funding for treatment. And I was getting great results, much better than the UK patients. And then there was this whole perception around disability that I've spoken about. So with those three things combined, of disabled people are so many other things that aren't represented, I'm getting great treatment that's not here, and then also I need a purpose. I thought, well, I can't just wait for someone else to do it. I'm going to have to
Yeah.
make it happen. And it was around that time that Simon Cowell had got in touch with me through Channel 4 from seeing my documentary. And then living in a small rural village, everyone recognised mum and dad and me and the house. And people started putting £10 notes through mum and dad's door, which they confiscated off me
Oh.
every time. Dad was like, "You're on benefits. It's illegal to take cash in hand." It's £10, but thank you. And then we just kind of, there
That is
wasn't this.
funny though, isn't it?
That's what they were like as parents. But there wasn't a big sort of business plan. It was literally a HSBC bank account with charitable status. We opened that. We just put the money away, and we thought, well, if there's a big, car crash or a house fire, we can just give somebody that lump sum and they can take it themselves and fund themselves to go to this centre abroad that I've been to.
Yeah.
And then because the public interest didn't stop, I was able to build a board and delegate where all the gaps are in my CV. So I was able to build a voluntary board of lawyers, HR, doctors, and that's when it
Wow.
took this kind of formal process, and the charity just became more and more formal, and we were able to cut out lots of overheads. We had an office for free through Regis, and we had so many sort of gifts in kind. And then fast forward present day, we have that rehab centre here in this country. We have 20 patients in the centre at the moment. And it's never gone away. And the great thing is, as my life's progressed and I've become a mum and my career's got busier, there's loads of other Katies now that are going out giving talks, that are mentoring patients as well as me, which is really great. And they are, fashionable, they are fun, they are in relationships, they are team leaders at work, but they are disabled, they are burnt, they are disfigured. And it's great. We're seeing a lot more representation through that, which I'm really pleased about.
Yes, which we are, which is one of the things I want to talk about. But first of all, I want to talk about the Pride of Britain Award,
Yes.
because it was less than 4 years, I think, after your attack, and we were so impressed, absolutely impressed. And obviously, we'd watched the documentary, which was about your early days and the work that you were then doing. And it was unanimous, we thought, oh, yes, Katie Piper, who by then we hadn't really met, should win a Pride of Britain award. And, everybody now, and you particularly, understand the spirit of that. And I just want to ask, really, because, the purpose of this podcast is we're revisiting a lot of our previous winners and seeing what life was like then and what life is like now. And what difference did winning a Pride of Britain award make? How did you feel when you learned that you had won one, to start with?
Everyone kept it a secret from me because, they have to create all those tapes and everything. So people
Yeah,
around me knew, but they never ever told me. And I didn't suspect it at all, actually. I was genuinely, totally shocked. And I think for me, it's a very prestigious award. Like now I've seen the process. It's very thought out. It's very considered,
absolutely.
and tight competition as well, because there's a lot of research that goes into finding all these people.
Yeah,
And also, it doesn't feel like something that's in celebrity culture where people are sort of nominated for doing their job of acting or singing. It genuinely is people doing different things in society. So I felt really privileged and honoured in that sense. I think also I felt a bit worried and scared because I was like, wow, it's such a big event. I haven't really been to anything like that. Um, and then it was really lovely that I was allowed to bring, not just a plus one. I was allowed to bring mum and dad. I brought my partner. I brought my surgeon. He'd never been on a red carpet in his life. He didn't know what to wear. Um,
that's
so
funny.
yeah, and it was nice because like we've shared awful times together. That group of us have been in ICU together. We've been in recoveries together, and to be stood on the red carpet together and to be around a nice table with white wine where you'd have to pay for it and all these things. It was just lovely because I'm just used to seeing him in his scrubs, my doctor, and to see him there, it kind of, like in the times of my life, I felt really bad for what my mum and dad have been through. I felt really bad for the challenge my surgeon has faced. So I felt in my way, I was giving them something nice too. So that
Oh, how
felt,
lovely.
yeah, that felt good for me. And also it was June Brown that gave me the award.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
so sad to see of her passing.
Dot Cotton,
Yeah,
her
which for
most
me was Dot
famous.
Cotton,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
in the
And
90s.
Sir Ian
Yes.
McClellan. Yeah.
Yeah. And also you. I grew up watching you on Countdown as well. It was quite surreal for
Oh,
me.
thank you.
So yeah, but it's a lovely event. I think when you go as well, all of my nerves once I got there completely disappeared because I didn't need to worry. It wasn't a judgmental environment. Everyone's there. It's not just about celebrities. You genuinely invite all these everyday heroes and all of these
Yeah.
people from different emergency units, and I think that was the atmosphere in the room's really nice. It's really warm and sincere. And then post that award, it was fantastic, not just for myself, but for the charity, because it gave a real opening to the charity of positive publicity, positive conversation. Other journalists wanted to come physically to the charity and see the day-to-day work. They wanted to ask, what's next? Who are you going to help? And so it was a really helpful platform, not just for me, but for everyone I worked with and the other burn survivors.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's for us, and there are a few of us who've been on it for 20 blah, 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 years. I've lost count now. Even I've lost count. And it's what we want for all of our
Mm,
winners is that they have a wonderful night. That's the most important thing, that they are celebrated and feel that they're celebrated. And that there's a lot of goodness in the room, a lot of
mm.
willing people on. And that, it's lovely to hear that it does make a difference.
Do you know it was also the first night I wore red lipstick?
Wow, how did that feel? That's very brave for anybody, but for someone who has been through what you have been through, why did you do that? Was that a statement to yourself?
I think it was just a turning point of like, this is me and I should just celebrate it as I am and just feel comfortable. And people are going to stare, so give them something to look at.
That's a good phrase. I like that phrase. That might be a headline somewhere, I think. We're talking about the foundation now. And of course, the attack happened before social media really started. There were
That's
chat
right.
rooms and, forums and things. But before, it was around the same time as Twitter just began, but Twitter didn't have any kind of
No.
momentum behind it then. And I know very recently that you've spoken about when your book, which I want to talk about, was published, and you appeared on Sky News, obviously to promote it, and then you were trolled, which is sadly part of life nowadays. But you reacted very, very positively. Just describe that, going on Sky News, talking about something which was called a little bit of faith, and something very positive. How did that affect you?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as I had an internet presence, I was trolled all of the time, as it are most people in the public eye, whether they've had something happen to them or not. And that's under comments, comments under newspaper articles, on social
Yeah,
media. I mean, it's kind of the modern version of the toilet wall, really, at school, isn't it? When everyone used to
yeah,
write stuff on there. But
mm,
I mean, it's a bit more severe. And in the beginning, it was absolutely, years and years ago, it was absolutely crushing because I wasn't confident at all. And the things people were writing, I thought that about myself. My self-esteem was really low.
yeah,
I mean, I'm absolutely not in that place anymore, and I can cope with it and deal with it. But I do dread doing mainstream sort of stuff where perhaps I'm not really that well known, like the news, like political news, that kind of
yeah,
thing. My social media is primarily a female following. I follow a lot of sort of feminist accounts, stuff that I'm interested in, and they're quite decent people on my
yeah,
Instagram and stuff. But this particular time, and it's really funny when people think it's okay and not okay to comment on someone's appearance. So this guy was like, "Oh, who's this ugly old woman on Sky News? Too much Botox, too big lips." And I can't even remember why it happens to me so often, but I sort of replied something saying, "Oh, yes, I've had Botox, and yeah, I know I'm not the most good-looking woman. I don't claim to be. It's actually not my job. I don't owe you pretty. That's not why I'm here. And my appearance has been altered from an acid attack." And then the person sort of is like, "Well, I didn't know that." And you think, actually, it doesn't matter if I have or haven't had an acid attack.
yeah,
Who is anybody to comment on somebody's appearance? And actually, if somebody chooses to have any kind of surgery, whether it's cosmetic, whether it's reconstructive, if they're in a sound place mental health wise, that's up to them. It's judging
yeah,
somebody on their appearance, whether it's a choice or not a choice. You're still judging them on their appearance, and it's not up to you to do that and take that higher ground. So for me, the reason why it infuriates me now is a large part of the stuff we do at the charity is a mentoring scheme. And when you mentor people at the beginning with a different appearance, their biggest worry is that they will be the butt of the joke. They will have horrible
yeah,
comments either behind their back or to their face. So
yeah,
when you try to reassure them that's not the case, and most people are fairly decent, when you go on national telly with 1 million followers and that's the reaction, you're just showing people who aren't at your stage of confidence that they're right and that they should hide away and they shouldn't pursue their dreams of going back to employment or having relationships. So that one person slating me on Twitter is having a ripple effect to thousands of people that have been beaten, attacked, and
yeah,
unfortunate accidents, which sadly one day you could find yourself in. No one's immune to a fateful day of something going wrong or meeting the
yeah,
wrong partner. So it's just really disappointing and really unnecessary. And for me, I always go by this saying of hurt people hurt people. So I'm really glad I don't come from that place of anger and
yeah,
hurt that person comes from. But yeah, it is. I mean, I think it could be changed. I think if social media had a policy where you use your passport to sign up and you get
Yeah.
verified and you have to put all those personal details in and you can't be an egg and just abuse people, then we might see some change.
Well, that hopefully is the online safety bill. I'm quite actively involved in that, which is going through Parliament at the moment, which hopefully will change things.
Mm,
Let's see. And fingers crossed for that. It's interesting what you say though about that. I don't know if you know, but my brother, who's in his late 60s now, so born in the 50s, was born with a severe cleft lip and palate.
mm,
So he's had 24 operations in total. And I know when I was growing up, and he was considered, not attractive, let's say,
mhm,
before the internet, obviously, and before all of those years. But the effect, even then, it was sort of considered okay for Anton to be the butt of the joke,
mhm,
but it's not okay at all. So I've kind of seen it from being a child and having a brother with a facial disfigurement, and the effect that can have. And that was before social media. So,
mm.
the work that you do is tremendously brave, Katie, and important. And does it give you strength to know that when you do answer back or you speak about it, that it does help others? I know it helps others. So do you know that
Yeah.
it helps others? Does that help you to do it?
Well, I try to be boundaried because if I always replied, that would be my full time job because it's so often, I get something every single day. And I think if I replied every single day, I think that's quite draining. And,
Yeah,
I'm a big believer in energy and putting your energy into productive
I
things.
agree.
So yeah, I think you don't let those people penetrate into you, and you have that boundary. But I think occasionally, yeah, it is good to challenge some people's views. But on the whole, I think it's a celebration at the moment that the world has changed for the better. Like we are seeing more diversity, more representation. It
Yeah,
definitely hasn't got worse. I feel like I have a place in society that I didn't years ago. I feel other women, I can find them on my feed that have had different things happen to them, and I couldn't used to find things like that online. So on the whole, it's positive. Like I don't feel cross or frustrated, and these people are the minority, and I think we must hold on to that.
yeah, I would agree with that. Now then, onto a happier note. Obviously, your gorgeous husband, Richard, and your two beautiful children, Belle and Penelope. How is motherhood? Other than exhausting.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I've chosen to be a mum and to have a career as well. So there's that constant juggle. But yeah, I really enjoy, having two girls. The eldest is 8, the youngest is 4. And it's gone, it's cliche, but it's exactly what they say, that it's gone so quickly. They're
Oh,
growing up, yeah, so independent. And poor Penelope, most of her life has been in lockdown, so
of
sh
course, yes.
yeah, so
Bless her
she's
heart.
a very different child to her sister. But hopefully, we're going to sort of help her socialize and become confident. And sort of now she's getting back out there, she's back in her hobbies, back at nursery. So, yeah, that's really good. But I mean, it actually was amazing in lockdown because I'm normally traveling quite a lot for work, and that all stopped. So, I was able to really renew my relationship with them and become closer, and realize that actually I needed that. So, that was a real benefit.
Yeah. Oh, how wonderful. Now, back to Pride of Britain briefly, um, which was when you have been a judge on Pride of Britain. Now, I always find it really, really difficult because we're given, aren't we, the short list of people who could be awarded, some for the Child of Courage or some for emergency services or whatever it might be. I find it heartbreaking to have to make a decision. How did you find it as a judge?
Yeah, it's really hard. But I think it's really great how seriously it's taken. You know, there's a lot of time to prep and really full stories sent to you where you can really read it at your leisure and do additional research. Then it's so important how it's all face to face, it's around the table,
Yeah.
it's really, really considered. And it's really hard when you judge people because people bring different strengths, different characteristics. So you can't really compare them sometimes. But I will say, to get to that stage where your photos and your story is being passed around the table of some pretty incredible people, the judging
Yeah,
panels
they are.
really diverse. Everyone's got their own life experiences. They've had a really rich career. So just to be discussed at that table is an achievement. You know, you've actually been recognized. You've been pulled out from the masses of millions of people. So I think, first of all, be proud if you get to that stage. And I have seen over the years, some people don't necessarily get an award that year, but they do get reconsidered, and they
I
do
know.
sometimes, you know, get
We do that all
awards.
the time, don't we? We go,
Yeah, yeah,
oh, well, gosh, yes, well, we'll have to take a vote. And then one person on the short list is
yeah,
voted through. They go, well, can we just put that person with an actor? That happens all the time. All the
yeah.
time.
People
Yeah.
champion other people. They sort of get emotionally involved, don't they, and really champion them. And yeah, but at least it's always very fair, and I think that's great. You
Yes,
know.
it is. It is. So now, milady, we're in 2022. You have this fantastic best-selling book, A Little Bit of Faith. The foundation is going brilliantly. You've got your two beautiful children and a lovely marriage. What's next?
The lockdown taught me I needed to slow down a bit and enjoy the stuff I was doing and possibly be more present for my kids. You know, I was like the classic person that would tick the box of rushing home and making the
Yeah.
bedtime, but rushing the story, getting downstairs to get back on my phone to send an email. So I was there in person, but I wasn't really very relaxed and enjoying the present moment. So it has been to take less on and to slow down, and to really dedicate my time to projects I'm super passionate about. So, yep, the charity lives on, the rehab centre. It takes a lot of fundraising because it's a lot of overheads. But for my projects, I've just announced I'm going into children's literature. So
Lovely.
yeah, I'm writing my first children's book, which is called All You Need. And it's about the qualities that a child needs to be happy and to be confident. Um,
Oh,
yeah, so I've done it for Penelope's age group. So I'm working with an illustrator. It's very much, it's text and pictures. So that it's sort of
yeah.
3 to sort of 5 year olds that can read it with their parents.
And so you can do a lot of that from home as well, can't you?
Yeah, you can. Yeah. I mean, I've gone back to in face-to-face work now, and I've gone back to some traveling, but I mean, it's great the stuff you can do at home because then I can still do the school runs and, make it back in time for ballet and swimming lessons and all the other bits and bobs.
Well, we wish you all the very best with that, Katie. And
Thank you.
it's, a privilege really to be able to have so much of your time. And thank you for telling us about the Pride of Britain win and for everything that you do, because it really does help so many people. And there are a lot of broken people out there, and genuinely, what you do helps to mend some of them. And
I still have the award on the shelf. So it's a big part of my life. So
I've got one here, which they gave me just for surviving 20 years. Not that I'd done anything that deserved a Pride of Britain award other than, obviously, being part of it for 20 years. So I keep it there.
Oh, brilliant.
Always. Yeah, I've always got it there because it reminds me not of anything I've done, but of, wonderful people like you who are,
thank you.
And I think in the world we need to be reminded of the Katie Pipers. So thank you, Katie.
Thank you very much. And a big congratulations to everyone this year as well who's been nominated and won as well.
Yeah. Thank you, darling.
Thank you.